Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about Silent Night, Deadly Night from 1984. I think a lot of times when you talk about Christmas horror movies, when people are talking about their favorite kind of Christmas movies, and then you mention a Christmas horror movie, it's in a way to be like, oh, I'll watch this crazy Christmas horror thing, look how crazy I am or something. You're used to your safe, family-friendly Christmas movies, but I like one where there's a Krampus or someone stabbing somebody or something. And most of the time, like, you think you're really cool and the other person is sort of like, don't talk to me or weird. But you kind of want there to be some controversy, you want there to be some friction, because the juxtaposition to like a Love Actually versus like a Christmas horror movie is kind of what makes it entertaining. Most Christmas horror movies don't really get into any controversy, but Silent Night, Deadly Night from 1984 is probably the only one that actually was controversial and actually got pulled from theaters after a week and got protests and did become a lightning rod and a big deal that we all kind of think would happen to Christmas horror movies. It's kind of surprising considering that Black Christmas came out in the 70s, and there was also another movie where there was like a slasher movie where the killer was dressed in a Santa suit, which is why this film was so controversial, because the killer was dressed as a Santa suit. That was like the primary focus of the ad campaign. They're really selling it, and it didn't matter that Christmas Evil had happened 4 years before. It didn't matter that Black Christmas had happened. It didn't matter if there was, I think, another one straight to video that I keep forgetting the name of. There was a comic from Tales from the Crypt in the 70s that did the same concept, but this one, accidentally, they aired an ad for this between Three's Company and Little House on the Prairie, which apparently in 1984 people watched those things. It caused a controversy. There were protests and all that stuff for a movie that I actually find fairly entertaining. I had a good time with it. It's fairly sexist and simple and stupid and kind of typical for the various Halloween slasher knockoffs, which this is. It's a holiday slasher film. Obviously that's sort of what they're trying to do, and it takes a lot from Halloween, like most of these do, and not really that successfully. This is late in the slasher genre. This is 1984. Friday the 13th, the final chapter, came out earlier that year, and it actually came out on the same day as, or like around like a day after or something, Nightmare on Elm Street. So the end of kind of the slasher time period was literally happening like right around the time this came out. So it's kind of late in that period, and it kind of feels that way. It feels like a genre that's run its course, is playing so safe within its genre. It's not really interesting in a certain regard, but this is kind of so bad it's good in a lot of ways. It's so ridiculous it's good. It made me laugh out loud at a lot of things, and I think that's mainly what this franchise is actually known for. But if you're willing to actually have a sense of humor, which apparently parents in the 80s didn't, then you could actually get down with Silent Night, Deadly Night, and it can actually be that ridiculous Christmas horror movie that you want to watch and laugh at and think about. A dark humor, bloody, disgusting Christmas movie, rather than the kind of sweeter, nicer, family-friendly fare. This has a Santa Claus with an axe who's coming for you. A kid who loves Santa Claus like most kids, and then one Christmas his parents are murdered by a guy dressed up in a Santa Claus outfit after he hails them down while they're driving, and he shoots the dad and then rips off the mom's blouse. This is a very tits heavy slasher movie in a very like patriarchal shitty 80s way, but you know, it's like a slasher movie in 1984, so that's like kind of par for the course of this genre. You know, I'm not saying I'm okay with it, it's just like you sort of know what you're getting into after you've seen a few of these things. But he like sexually assaults the mom, slashes her throat, shoots the dad, and then this kid grows up kind of being scared of Santa Claus. They go with him in the orphanage, and he flips out every time it's Christmas and Santa Claus is there. But you'd think, by the way, they would go, maybe the kid whose parents were murdered by a guy in a Santa Claus outfit should be like kind of left alone from the whole Santa Claus thing. And they're like, nah kid, get over it, which is like wonderful. And then he eventually, when he's older, gets to work in a toy store. Bad idea again. And suddenly the guy who's going to be Santa Claus breaks his ankle, which I really don't understand how that doesn't make him able to do his job as Santa Claus, because don't you sit most of the time if you're an in-store Santa Claus? I mean, he could have done it, but whatever. He couldn't. That was their excuse. This movie has a very flimsy in terms of reasoning. And then the kid who has this job as a stockroom in a toy store is forced to be Santa Claus, even though there's another male employee who could have done it, but they make him be Santa Claus, and then he has a total mental breakdown at the Christmas party and starts killing everyone and going on a murderous rampage, because why not? And because of his past trauma, having his parents murdered by Santa Claus. Silent Night, Deadly Night was kind of a lightning rod. There was a group called Citizens Against Movie Madness who protested the film. They they really did come after this movie, and critics came after it. Siskel and Ebert. If you didn't know, Siskel and Ebert, aside from kind of introducing most of this generation to film criticism, also really did not like horror movies at all in the 80s. They don't really get the crap they probably deserve for bad-mouthing horror as much as they did. You can find it online, their review of Silent Night, Deadly Night, which I might link because it's always been something about their legacy I've never quite really ever liked. Most of the review is Gene Siskel, so if you don't like Gene Siskel, I guess it's another reason to. Ebert doesn't really talk that much in it, but he seems to agree with him. He says, like, shame on you to the corporations who released it, shame on you to the people who made it. Basically said their profits on it were blood money, which is like, okay, let's be a little melodramatic here. And most of the critics really went after it because of what it was doing to the image of Santa Claus, which is a little odd considering, like, that there had been another slasher movie 4 years prior and other Christmas slasher films. I think the other one was For All a Good Night, and that one was just straight to video. Black Christmas was pre the Halloween thing, and then Christmas Evil didn't really have the big wide release push because wide releases weren't as common. It wasn't the only way you'd release something the way Silent Night, Deadly Night did. A lot of this was because of the ad campaign, and it was so omnipresent and people were really aware of it. Some of it is because of the iconic poster, which I kind of like the poster. I think it's kind of cool looking. And also slasher films, by the way, I know we like to talk about 80s slasher films now because we don't have to see them in theaters constantly, but during the height of the slasher genre, they really were pushing them like crazy, and people were kind of sick of them. And I actually think that had a part to play in it. When I watch it, I kind of look at it as one of those ridiculous horror movies that people watch because they're like, holy shit, this is so silly and stupid. But I like the composition to a lot of the shots, the color in it. I like how it used like kind of this bright color. I like that it was like a slasher movie made in Utah. You don't see a lot of slasher films in Utah. And this film kind of has a real tongue-in-cheek nature about itself, but that might just be because it just kind of has an interesting marriage of what it's doing, and it's kind of bad production and stupid screenplay kind of works for it. The thing about Halloween is it was a real deconstruction, minimalist kind of thing on purpose. It kind of like let you dwell on how threatening Michael Myers is and build these characters and things like that. And really everyone took the wrong lessons from it, going like, look how minimal and simple this is. I could obviously do that. And as you probably noticed from watching any slasher movie that's not Halloween, no they didn't. And Silent Night, Deadly Night in terms of that is interesting in that it doesn't really do the thing where you have the killer and then you have the teens you're following. And in this, you're following the killer. They try to do other plot lines. It doesn't really work. There's no Laurie Strode or some character who the killer's obsessed with and following. There's none of that. It's just like this guy's mental breakdown. And it's kind of like if you made a more compassionate, interesting kind of Michael Myers and you semi-care about him, although he does just turn like a light switch and become this killer. There were often times that was like, you know, he just seems to have the worst luck in terms of someone who like really hates Santa Claus for obvious reasons. I mean, I wouldn't really like Santa Claus if he killed my parents and stuff, as I think most people, unless that's what you ask for Christmas, then I guess that would work out for you. I think Silent Night, Deadly Night is for people who are a little looser. The whole movie plays like a ridiculous movie you'd watch with a beer with your friends and laugh at and go, wait, how did this happen? It doesn't quite connect. A lot of the logic in it doesn't work. You'd think if someone hated Santa Claus and, you know, had obviously like mental issues and various traumas in their life connected to Santa Claus, they wouldn't work at like a toy store with the Santa Claus in store. They'd like work at like a Kwanzaa store or like a Hanukkah store. Are those a thing? I don't really know, but like they'd work at a store like somewhere their Santa Claus wouldn't be involved, you know? And then they tell them and go, yeah, well, my parents were murdered by Santa Claus. And they go, oh shit, that makes so much sense that you would not want to deal with Santa Claus. I completely understand. But apparently like everyone in this movie is like not cool with it, and look what happened. It's all I'm saying is you watch this movie the whole time, I'm like, why? Maybe if everybody was a little cool about it, we wouldn't have a murdering Santa Claus. Certainly if someone told me that, I'd be like, so I'm not gonna wear this hat at the party then. It's not. And why are you coming to a Christmas party? See, I would not invite them, but would that hurt their feelings? Wow, now I see how this happened. I see it now. Society, man. And Christmas. It's dumb, it's stupid, it's a good enough of a ridiculous time that if you're seeing a holiday horror movie, you're seeing it for silly, stupid reasons. You're seeing it to have a good time with your friends. Be like, Santa Claus as the villain in a slasher movie, okay. And like, it fulfills on that simple, basic movie watching desire. That's what's so great about it, I think, is it just does what it needs to do. Sure, it has some shittier things about its logic. It's a little mean and cruel in certain regards, particularly in its depiction of women. This isn't a film you're seeing for the amazingness in cinema. This is a film that you drunkenly watch after a holiday party, and if you fell asleep during it, that'd be cool. It's not a great film in the kind of holiday horror slasher thing, and it was towards the end of it, and it's clear like this was a lot of people making independent productions who just wanted to make a simple, stupider movie. The director even didn't direct the gore parts because he couldn't handle it, which is like, okay, although I like all the gore parts, but he did more family friendly fare. And like a lot of horror directors end up doing like ABC Family or more conservative like Christian programming, oddly enough, which if you look at the politics of slasher genres, they are typically a little more conservative leaning and such, so I guess it sort of makes sense. You can kind of see the bright colors and the simplicity he uses in that really works for Silent Night, Deadly Night. I actually think the direction sort of works within the whole thing, and I sort of appreciate how it did what it did, but it was clear the slasher genre was on its way out when Nightmare on Elm Street happened, which was released around the same time. Horror would change to more a supernatural type of thing. Silent Night, Deadly Night reminds me what's so fun about a stupid, dumb kind of slasher film at the time. I don't think criticism and people in the 80s were ironic enough yet to really appreciate like a dumb, ridiculous slasher movie and kind of laugh at, you know, someone getting their head cut off while they're like going sledding, or like just having the killer be a guy in a Santa Claus outfit, which he doesn't really look like Santa. He has the beard like under his chin the whole time. So this is the only one of the Christmas horror films that actually got a franchise, which is interesting. Clearly this is made in a post Friday the 13th world. As much as like Halloween sets the stage for it, Friday the 13th kind of takes over the influence in what you want to do with a slasher film. You want to make a franchise out of it. Halloween did that as an afterthought even after Friday the 13th. Silent Night, Deadly Night literally even sets itself up for a sequel very obviously at the end, and it got like 5 sequels. Only one after this actually went to theaters. Silent Night, Deadly Night is sort of like a good time a couple nights before Christmas. You probably won't remember it when you go back to work after New Year's Eve and stuff, but you know you had a good enough time with your friends laughing at a ridiculously stupid, fun little slasher genre film. And I think that's all you're asking for with Silent Night, Deadly Night. And if people had a more relaxed attitude, they probably would have been more down with it at the time. But since in the 80s everyone was a jerk and hated gay people and stuff, we got what we got, and they had to ban Silent Night, Deadly Night. But now I get to talk about it, and those guys get to go down in history as a bunch of jerks. So who really wins? I think it's me, watching a guy in a Santa Claus outfit attack a bunch of people with an axe, and Merry fucking Christmas. So if you have seen Silent Night, Deadly Night, and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.